Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Yosenju deck profile. So I'm really excited for this one because this deck is a very interesting deck that I've actually put together for you guys because it's completely different from any Yosenju deck that I've put together on this channel before. This build is an OTK based build that actually focuses around pendulum summoning less than normal summoning, which is kind of an interesting aspect of this particular deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name, description of a single video, getting a signed card to the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Yosenju, 1. So Yosenju, 1 has a really neat effect that has the ability that when this card is normal summoned, you can immediately have this card effect resolves. You get to normal summon an additional Yosenju monster from your hand, except another copy of 1. If you control another Yosenju monster, you can target a face-up card on your opponent's side of the field and return to the hand, and then all of your Yosenju monsters just about share the ability that this effect can only be activated once while this card's face up on the field, and then they all share this particular ability, usually, that during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned this turn, return it to the hand, which is a very interesting effect because basically they're like spirit monsters that they just return back to your hand during the end phase. We then play 2 copies of Yosenju, 2. Yosenju, 2 has a ability that when this card is normal summoned, you can immediately this card resolves, normal summon another Yosenju except another copy of itself. This card can attack your opponent directly, but when it does using this effect, the battle damage inflicted to your opponent is halved, and it returns itself to the hand during the end phase of the turn it was normal summoned. We then play 3 copies of Yosenju, 3. Yosenju, 3 has a very neat effect too, that it's actually the Searcher. That if this card is normal summon, you can immediately have this card resolves, normal summon an additional Yosenju from your hand, except another copy of itself, and when another Yosenju monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can add a Yosenju card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of 3, which is a very good effect as well, and it does return itself during the end phase of the turn it was normal summon. We then just play 2 copies of Yosenju, Sabu. Sabu I just think is a good 2 of in my particular build. I like Sabu, but I just like 2 copies of it. And what it does is once per turn, during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned this turn, return it to the hand, and you only use the effect of this card once per turn. And if this card is normal summoned, if you control another Yosenju card, you can add 1 Yosenju Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, and you can target 1 Yosenju card you control, place 1 Dizzying Winds of the Yosenju Village, which you don't play in this deck, or Yosenju Whirlwind, which you also don't play in this deck, face up in your spell and trap card zone after you do shuffle the deck. So basically the only effect that you're going to get off on this card is the Pendulum Monster effect, where you're getting it to the hand. We then play 3 copies of Izana. Izana I still really like as a 3 of in this deck. I've debated dropping Izana down to 1, but I really, every time I do, I just find myself wanting more copies of this card. And what it does is once per turn during the end phase of the turn with normal summon, you return it to the hand. You can only effect this card once per turn. And also it is the ability that you can discard this card. Your opponent can activate cards or effects when Yosenju monsters is normal summon or special summon, or if you control another Yosenju, you get to draw a card, which is what I really like about this effect, is that you just get an additional draw. I really like that draw effect on this card because it comes in so handy to get an additional draw. I thought about dropping it down maybe to 1 in this deck. I'm not quite sure what I would play in its place yet, but it is a really good card just to get that additional draw, and it's another great level 4 to go into a rank 4 play, which is why I kept it kind of at 3 for now. We then play 3 copies of the Yosenju Dragon. This card is really, really good in the deck. This card is the reason I actually went to going into the Pendulum build, because it has the ability that you get to target a Yosenju monster in your other Pendulum zone. For rest turn, its scale becomes 11, and also you cannot special on monsters except for Yosenju monsters. Even this card leaves the field, and then during the end phase, return this card to your hand. You can only effect this card once per turn, and it cannot be special summoned except by a Pendulum summon. And if this card is normal or special summon, then you get to target 1 card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. And each time a card's on the field is returned to the hand or main deck by your card effect, when this card's on the field, all Yosenju monsters you currently control gain 500 attack. And then once per turn during the end phase, if this card is special summoned this turn, return it to the hand. Which is, this card can get absolutely huge, especially with stuff like 1 and stuff like this card in the Pendulum Zone. Like, you have a lot of effects that just bounce stuff in this deck, so this card can get really big really fast. We then play 3 copies of Daibok. I don't think I've ever played 3 Daibok in a build, but I really like it in this build because it's just basically a 3k beat stick. It has the ability that when a Yosenju monster you control declares an attack, you can have that monster gain 300 attack, which is rarely ever going to come up, but its monster effect is where it really hits, because what it does is it can't be special summoned except by Pendulum Summon, and this card's Pendulum Summon cannot be negated, and if this card is normal or special summon, you can target 2 cards on the field and return to the hand, and then during the end phase, if this card is special summon this turn, you return it to the hand. So this card card is really good, especially in combo with the Yosenju Dragon. Daibok just comes in really clutch in this deck to be able to go into really good plays. We then play 2 copies of R-Pole. R-Pole is really neat because once per turn, if you have a Yosenju card in your other Pendulum Zone, you can make this card's Pendulum Scale become 11 until the end of end phase, and also you can't special summon anything except for Yosenju monsters. And if this card is normal summon, you change the defense position, it cannot be targeted, or your opponent cannot target Yosenju cards for attacks except this one. And then we have 2 L-Poles as well. The 2 L-Poles come in really neat too, because if Yosenju card you control would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can destroy this card instead, which is pretty good just to get you an additional monster that can protect your other Yosenjus. And for the only 3 hand traps I'm playing 3 copies of Dimensional Shifter. The 3D shifters are basically here because they hurt the opponent a lot more than they hurt me, which is really nice. I like the copies of the Dimensional Shifters because if you have no cards in your graveyard, which usually you won't, you can just immediately send this card from your hand to the grave and everything gets banished instead, which is really important. A deck like this does not really care about stuff getting banished, which is why I've gone for that particular build, that they just are like, cool, I can just banish whatever I want. It's not a big deal. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, I am playing a single copy of Utopia, or not Utopia Double. I'm playing a Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing is kind of just here, just for the off chance that I might OTK my opponent. I really don't care about the extra deck all that much because a lot of my cards restrict me out of summoning cards from the extra deck, but there is an off chance that I will normal summon 2 Yosenju monsters onto my side of the field and then immediately go for Utopia Double and then swing for game. That does come up every so often, so I do play the copy of Double or Nothing because my opponent will leave themselves wide open, so you can go for that particular play if you want to. We play a single copy of Dimensional Fissure. Dimensional Fissure just sends any monster that's sent to the graveyard is removed from play instead. This card comes in really handy in a deck like this as well. We play 3 copies of Yosenju Channeling. Channeling is really good as well because Channeling has the ability that if you control no monsters, then you can use the following effect to basically set your scales or add a level 5 or higher Yosenju monster in your deck to your hand. Or you get to place 1 L and R pole, which set your scales in your Pendulum Zone, but destroy them during your opponent's next end phase. But it's not going to matter because usually you're just going to OTK your opponent when that happens anyways. We then play 3 copies of Tengi because they are all Beast Warrior monsters, so you can just add any of them that you want from deck to hand. And then we play 3 copies of Extravagance to round out the spells because the Extravagance, again, you don't super care about the extra deck, so this card is one of the best cards to be able to play in this deck because it's going to help you dig into the deck really, really deep. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're playing a single copy of Macrocosmos. Macrocosmos is kind of the same thing as D-Fisher. It banishes everything when it touches the graveyard, which is really good to be able to just banish everything. And then we play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence because it's not a monster. It doesn't kind of conflict with my D-Shifter. So I play this over like Ash Blossoms and stuff like that. So it's not that big of a deal to just play this card over it because you just hit the opponent's monster that basically says, hey, I'm going to activate this effect, especially because you want to go second in this deck. You can basically throw this card against your opponent and go, hey, nope, you're not going to do that effect, and I'm going to play during my turn. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Utopia Double. Utopia Double is basically just here in the off chance that I can detach a material from this card, add a Double or Nothing from deck to hand, throw one of my 3 copies of Utopia on top of it, and then immediately summon Utopia at 5,000, swing at my opponent for 5,000, detach a material, negate the attack, and drop Double or Nothing to swing again for 10,000. I will say, if you don't want to play the Double or Nothing, you can play something like a Harpy's Feather Duster, drop all 3 of these, and play 3 copies of Utopia the Lightning, if you want to play that route instead. But the reason I play 3 and 3 is because basically I just like to have them as additional beat sticks on my deck, extra deck, to give me additional plays. 2 copies of Tornado Dragon just to help with back row. They come in really handy just to stop back row cards. So I play these at 2 because I really do not want to deal with my opponent's back row in this particular deck. We play 2 copies of Baguska because this deck doesn't really care if you slow the game down because all your monsters are going to return to hand anyways. So this card really comes in handy, especially if you just summon out 2 Yosenjus if you don't have your scales, if you just have 2 Yosenjus in your hand, which is rarely going to happen, but it's there just in case you need it to throw all your opponent's monsters in defense position. and then go after them during the next turn. Play a single copy of Lightning Chidori because Lightning Chidori bounces. It comes up very rarely, but bouncing cards does come up handy because when this card is XZ summoned, you get to target a set card your opponent controls and return that target to the bottom of the opponent's deck. And then once per turn, you can also detach material from this card to target one card your opponent controls and return that target to the top of the deck, which is pretty good. Play 2 copies of Great Fly because it boosts up all of my Yosenjus by 500, which comes in very handy. And also has the ability that if I have this on the field and it does get destroyed, then I get to target a wind monster in my graveyard and add it back to your hand, which is rarely going to happen, but hey, it's here just in case we need it. It's a really great card. Like, I really like to actually play Great Fly in this deck because Great Fly just comes in super handy, especially with the link zones that it has for the pendulum monsters. And then I play 2 copies of Pentastag. Pentastag just basically gives my monsters piercing damage, which is the big up of this card. If you have it pointing towards the Utopia double, it is going to give it piercing damage, which is really nice. That's a 10,000 beats deck to give it piercing damage. It also comes up very handy with the Yosenju Dragon, because basically you're going to be able to make that monster do piercing damage. It can get huge. I can get it up to like 5,000 pretty easily to be able to bounce cards and then just OTK the opponent. So it's a really easy play to actually pull off. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. It's a really fun deck to be able to play around with. I hope you guys give Yosenju's a try. It's a very budget deck, especially the way that I built it this time. This deck is a very budget option for you guys if you want to play a deck like this. I will say if you don't want to play the Infinite Impermanence and you want to go super budget with the copies of Infinite Impermanence, you can play your copies of your Forbidden Chalice instead, which is an option. If you don't want to play Extravagance, you can drop them for like a copy of Upstart Goblin or 3 copies of Reckless Greed. That's another option for you guys. That's an old school card that people used to play in this deck, or you play in a lot of different decks, which is another option for you guys if you're looking for a tech card. Or you can play stuff like Call by the Grave, Monster Reborn, stuff like that. I mean, I wouldn't play Monster Reborn because you're banishing everything, but there's a lot of cards you can play Storming Mirror Force over it just to slow the deck down a little bit and give it a little bit more counter as well. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.